Hello, Mr. Shalev.
Hello, Mr. Demetrio.
You had a busy day, haven't you?
Oh, busy as all hell. I mean, I ran up the stairs because I was like, oh, I got another thing I got to finish today till I can go to sleep. And even then, I can't sleep. There's more to do.
Trust.
Is a must.
I cannot trust men with my friend Nathalie Galfrascoli.
You pronounce that well,
Galfrascoli. It sounds like a
Galfrascoli.
dish, like we said.
And she is one of our first, if not the first, podcast that you'll ever see on our show when we didn't know what we were doing, which
No,
is kind of the same as it is now.
but as Andy says, it looks like we do.
We've tried to make it look like we do.
And she's the one that gave the name to the show.
She gave us the name. So we're going to spend the hour with her discussing why she can't trust men.
And we're going to do that on
A Wonderful Chaos.
And we have our first comment coming in from Mr. JC Barnett.
JC Barnett, we thank you for always being with us, JC, in Kentucky.
And he's listening.
And he sends us all of our swag. So I always have it next to me, the Kentucky Derby 146. I put it on often. Thank you very much. My forehead is getting much higher, JC. And with each inch, this hat really helps.
He's trying to reach my level, of course, which is probably not going to be for this lifetime. I don't know how I was feeling about this show.
Me too.
Like when she Nathalie, I saw Nathalie posting today the event. She was sharing it.
Yeah.
And in a way, I don't trust men. And then she was saying, I'm going to have this podcast with these two superheroes, which tells me that she trusts us enough to be here with us.
Oh, yeah. I didn't read that.
I read it and I shared it because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I always find when we bring shows like this on, when someone has an issue with men, like I always hold them a little bit like more lovingly, because I also realize that, it's not that we're separate from the challenges this person may be facing.
Where have we disturbed in our past and even current life?
Yeah. If Nathalie met me 30 years ago, I would have been the person she couldn't trust, for sure. Because I couldn't even trust myself, right? I didn't know what I wanted, so how the hell could I be with somebody else? That's often the challenge in life, is that we haven't worked out our own shit, and now we're working with other people who haven't worked out their shit, and then that just doesn't connect well. Yeah.
I think men and women have been hurt by each other and by themselves.
Yeah.
I think historically speaking, women more than men have been.
I don't even know if that's true.
No?
I think there's often pattern, and the pattern is reflected in, almost like we always say, what's the pattern you keep reliving over and over again?
Well, I'm looking at historically, like
Okay.
if I look at the Middle Ages, women were burned as witches.
You're going back in some TV.
I'm going collectively.
Wow.
Like think about women being raped like women and children being killed and raped during war.
Yeah.
Like they are the target of war crimes.
Okay.
Hashtag me too. I mean, you don't get men saying hashtag me too, even though a few men did come up and say yes.
Of course, yeah.
But it was very few compared to women. And when I saw the title, the reason I didn't feel completely comfortable is when someone makes a statement, I cannot trust men, then all I'm feeling when I read that is a deep pain, an experience which this person has had, which was so painful that it caused her to live her life.
Yeah.
With having this distance. Am I safe with you? Am I safe with you?
Yeah. It's interesting because on the title, I'll hear, I can't trust, and I don't even think of the last word, men or woman. I just hear in my head, I can't trust. and then that takes me more not to the objectification of the other gender, but it takes more into like a connected experience where I don't even need the other person to feel the discomfort of not being able to trust. Yeah. That's how I feel, how I sensed it. And before the show, you asked me something. I don't remember what you asked me. You asked me about trust. How do I?
Oh, I asked you, do you trust women? And then you said, I don't separate men and women.
Oh, exactly the same point. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't really like. I trust until I have any indication that there's no trust, and I see that that can be confronting for people because I treat people I've just met as if they're very good friends. Because I often feel there's no reason that they wouldn't be friends. And then, of course, what friendship means may be something that everyone interprets differently. But I see that everyone is full of love and compassion and challenges and messiness. So if I just love the person, then their challenges start to show up in the relationship. Then it's a little bit more like, hey, what did I do or what's going on? And then you can connect again. So I like, some people protect themselves and say, I don't want to get too close too quick, where I'd say, let's get really close and then let's see how far or how much further we can go or where we can continue to manage it to try to keep it in a more loving, connected space.
I mean, I hear you. And when you meet people and you give all that love, to what degree do they contract or shut down? Because you're a man and all of a sudden you have this love. What do you want from me?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky in that I turned 50 and I've got a belly and I got a wife that I love. And so there's no ulterior motives.
Yeah, but if they see you on the street or if you're having a call with someone.
Oh, I usually give no air of anything other than just the playful gratitude and fun and joy. So, and then we live in the Netherlands, as you kind of know, the people here are so direct and so certain in a lot of ways that the women stand their ground here. If anything, you have to be more scared here than you'll be put in your place if you're not acting appropriately. Yeah. Oh, I love. Do you see the first question that Bolalang posts for us, which is really nice? And
I think with that we have to bring her on.
We have to bring you on with this question. This is an important first starting question. We asked you this off of air, and we said,
asked you, who do you trust more?
Yes, Nathalie. This is the moment of truth. Do you trust Andy Chalif or Bambos Charles Demetriou? And I'm going to add more at the end of the sentence.
More.
Who do you trust more?
I feel a little internal conflict because actually, if I base it off time and time that I've spent with the person and how much I've seen of them, I would say Bambos. But there's something that I felt with Andy the first time I met him, which I didn't feel with Bambos, which was actually a feeling of safety. And I think Bambos, maybe you remember when we met, and I think I'd shared this with you before, that I found you a bit intimidating. And that for me was a bit of, a challenge at the beginning.
And I think this is a really nice way to start the show, not for joke, because I usually like to make jokes, but what would be the behavior that you would witness in either one that you'd say, oh, that's feeling or behavior that I feel more trust in?
I think it's something energetic, to be honest. Like, I'm not feeling into like an actual behavior. It's something energetic that I feel. I guess when I feel an energy of like there could be potential for like some sort of sexual exchange or like an energy of that vibe, then that's when I go into am am I safe here? Like, and then when I feel an energy of more, or I guess when that energy is not there and it's really just a curiosity and just kind of hanging out, or I feel this distance in that sense. It could be due to age as well. Yeah, then that creates trust for me already.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that age is always. Yeah.
No. I still like to have sex. Like, I still like, for everyone listening, I still like to have sex. I do want to make that explicit. I loved your answer, and I believe I would answer that the same for myself. It's a vibe, and you feel it, and it's like, I always call it like a resonance of like, what's the energy that's coming off of this individual. And when you try to explain it to someone else who doesn't experience life that way, then they think that you're interpreting or you're projecting, or like they don't realize that there's really something there. Yeah. Thank you for sharing or starting there with us. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and
thank you for giving us our name.
Thank you for trusting us.
How did you feel after you found out that our show became named after your comment?
I mean, honestly, it felt right. And I was super honest when we had that first show. Like, that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like a wonderful chaos.
Everything was breaking down, right?
Nothing worked. Bambos was downstairs when we started the show, and he ran up. It was beautiful.
Do you guys mind if we transition into the actual topic?
Yeah, I'd love it.
So I'm curious, Nathalie, where did this statement become true for you, as a sensation, before you could even put words to it? Can you take us there, please?
Yeah, I feel that it's something that has always been there with me for the past 20 years, since I became even aware of my relationship with men and with the masculine. And I don't know if I should explain, like, when I talk about the masculine for people watching, or if it's kind of.
You can say, what do you mean when you say masculine?
Yeah, masculine, I guess, for me, it's any masculine figure in my life, but also to my own masculine energy, my own, as we have this masculine energy, masculine and feminine energies within us. Because I feel like big part of me not being able to trust men is that for a long time I did not trust my own masculine. I did not trust my own elements of masculinity in myself, and also not just me and men, but also like masculinity socially, right? Like in society, like the energy of the masculine in society, and how we've been raised to behave and feel about certain things, and the culture of work and racing and achieving, and which for me are all elements of this kind of unhealthy masculine. But yeah, I mean, being completely honest, my relationship with the masculine and this statement of not being able to trust men started with my own father. That's really the first memory I have of not being able to trust my father in a lot of ways. And then realizing that actually it's because I was not taught how to trust myself and my own say and my own body and my own response to what was happening.
What was the thing that you were experiencing with your father that made you feel you couldn't trust him?
I can think of so many situations, but one that really comes back to me a lot, and I've shared about this when I shared my story. It's something as simple as I remember sitting on the family table with both my mom and my dad and my sister, and we were having a meal, and my dad would push me to eat things that I didn't want to eat. So something actually that feels quite innocent, but actually I feel like that's probably where my programming started. And so there was this food that I didn't really like, and he was like, kind of like, no, you need to eat it. You need to finish a plate, like because your mom made it for you, and it's good for you, and da da da. And then, okay, I mean, to that extent, that sounds all good and healthy. But the problem was that when I refused to eat it, or when I was really struggling, then he would get angry and he would raise his voice, and then he would just like force me to like literally shove it down my throat. And if I did not do that, then I would be told off and then sent to the corner, and then I had to stay there, and I had a really bad time, and I would be crying. And with that small episode, that for me meant that I cannot trust what I want. I cannot trust my own body. I cannot trust that if I'm not wanting to eat this, like I don't have the freedom to just do that, and I don't have the right to trust that in myself, because there's this figure of authority telling me that I cannot. So that's the earliest memory I remember of somehow having to please my father, or not trust myself.
I have to acknowledge that being a man and talking about this subject, I started to feel that my breath was getting shallow as you were speaking. And all of a sudden I realized, I feel really tender right now. That's all I want to share.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see because, like you'll be in a supermarket and you'll see a parent, being very aggressive with their children. And then you'll always think, in my mind, it's the discussion we're now having. And it's like, oh, wow, I can imagine how that struggle would be for that child when they grow up. I mean, I also had the struggle myself, so I know from the abuse of the dad as well. But clearly, it's a different relationship for a man to the father, a woman to a father. I've seen different expectations of what you need or want from them. Yeah.
Where I become curious now is in my life, when I've met women who have had a difficult relationship with their father, they then move on into life and they start dating men who have those qualities. And to what degree has that been true for you, and how did that impact you?
Yes, it has been the case. I would say especially my last relationship, because probably that was the deepest form of relating that I've experienced. Before that, it was more this dating, let's say, college type of relationship where there was not a level of depth, where I could really even see these patterns or see these behaviors. But in my last relationship, I obviously it took me some time to realize, because the things that seem small, then all of a sudden then become big over time. And then we start realizing things as the relationship goes. But indeed, I noticed how I compromised a lot from the beginning. Things that I tolerated in the beginning of the relationship, right now, today, I would not tolerate. And I would speak up way earlier, and I would probably walk away in a lot of cases, a lot before. Indeed, narcissism and not feeling seen, me expressing a boundary, and then that being seen as, oh, you're exaggerating, or you're being passive aggressive. I received that one a lot from men. Or somehow invalidating my experience. or negating what I was feeling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a biggie, negating another person's experience. Because then you're not seen or heard, and not only that, you're even being judged for it. You're not allowed to have that experience. Clearly similar to what you were mentioning as a child. When you talked about it, I'd be curious, what were the patterns? You kind of named a few just now, but what were the patterns that you noticed come up in this last relationship where you're like, oh, wow, that's reliving an earlier self?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes up is it feels quite private to share.
I saw the smile and I said, that one, that smile, that one, that was the one. And then
this is what we're here for, right? I guess.
Are you willing to share it?
Yeah.
Would you like to sing it to us?
Yeah.
No. I remember expressing certain needs that I had in intimacy.
Okay.
And so basically, I'm just gonna frame it for you guys. So what was happening was that I was being approached to intimacy in a way that didn't feel good for me. Sometimes it didn't happen all the time, but at certain moments it did happen. So situation was like we were watching a movie or something, and then my partner would approach me in a way that he's trying to flirt with me or seduce me into having sex, and the energy he was giving off in those moments for me felt like I felt some sort of pressure for some reason that I had to, and if I would be like, oh, okay, not now, he would keep insisting. So it's almost like he was not really trusting my no in that moment. And it happened to me, and it happens to a lot of women that I know, that sometimes you just give in, and eventually you give in and you have sex, and then after you get a feeling of, why did I do that? Because it doesn't feel good. So I remember this happening a couple of times, and then at some point, it really I noticed a lot of anger in one of those situations after, and a lot of I was kind of disappointed and honestly dissatisfied as well, because I didn't feel. I think the thing that was hurting me was that I didn't feel connection. In the way that was being approached, but also in the way that it was being done. And then after care, I didn't really feel a connection. And I started to question, like, why is he actually just wanting to have sex with me to feed some sort of urge or need of his own, or is he really doing it to connect? And in those moments, I did not feel a connection whatsoever.
No.
But then the response I was getting was that I did get something like, oh, no one ever told me that before, or my exes didn't used to complain about that, and obviously that triggered even more anger. So somehow negating my experience and what I was feeling in that moment, and I think that actually one of the biggest gifts we have as women is our intuition and being able to feel these things when energetically our man is not being present with us. We will feel it in our body, and we will close down, and we will resent, and we will get angry, and we will we don't want to be in that place.
Wow. How old were you, Nathalie? How many years ago?
Like 4 or 5 years ago.
It's interesting because I can certainly see an earlier part of me that was very much like your ex boyfriend. Like I can totally see that part of me, that the sexual drive was so great, that it was more animal than it was looking for any connection.
It was more the taking than seeing how to.
Yeah, it wasn't a connection exercise in that moment. It was a very much a like just animal.
Yeah.
So it's, as you speak, it's interesting because I also am reflecting on my own life and realizing, wow, there certainly would be women, I'm sure, in my life that would feel similar to how you felt towards your partner.
Definitely. And before Andy spoke, I was thinking, as men and women, before we got out into the world, we don't really get sex educated. And that was why I asked how many years ago was this, because also in a way, the younger version of myself had no clue how to what my definition of sex today, completely different than if I even had a definition back then. It felt like sex was like food and air, in a way, very basic.
And Ralph Lewis chimes in, that animal I see as a dysfunctional conditioning. That's how he describes it.
Well,
yeah.
Let's just also get one thing straight. I mean, the women that I'm attracting today would never be attracted to the bambos from 10 years ago. Like, no way. And so, and also, same with me. Like, I would never be attracted to the women that I had been with 10 years ago. So we're constantly evolving. And to what degree do we allow that hurt to move into the next relationship? And of course, yeah, I feel a contraction in my body if I have to go there. So as I'm speaking now, I hear my next question. When you meet a man, do you encounter them with an openness and then you contract, or do you contract and then you allow yourself to open? Or a mix of these two?
Again, depending on the energy they give off. If an energy is confusing to me, I contract first, and then I allow myself time to get to know and open if I feel safe. As you were sharing, I actually got curious about what is the bambos of now doing that the bambos of back then wasn't, or what was the bambos of now being, or yeah.
I would say that I see sex as, like, I can't, like, in this body right now at this age, I cannot have sex if there's no love. There has to be some level of love. And I always experience, because you put everything into it, it's quite a lot of energy. So if you're going to half-ass it and hold back, then it's not fulfilling. So sex for me is, I'm using my whole body to share with the woman how I feel about her. And penetration doesn't have to happen. Like, it's the whole journey. And a lot of men talk about, I ejaculate very quickly. I'm like, how long is your foreplay? And normally it's like, oh, there's no foreplay, or it's like a couple of minutes. And then, so I've been telling my male friends, the longer the foreplay, because we need it too, the longer the lovemaking. And you don't do it as if I do this, I'm going to get that. It is like a fluidity. And back then, I had no clue. I think I had to take my first Tantra class before I started to discover, like, oh, there's an other orgasm. There's a different way of being in bed. Like, oh, this is really confusing. I wish we had this in school. What did your parents teach you about sex and men, if anything?
It's interesting that you asked this, because there's also this one episode that I remember on the very first time that my parents ever talked about it. So I went on a school trip with my classmates, and in that school trip we went to this planetarium, and we found one of my classmates, we were like 11, 12. One of my classmates found a condom on the floor that day, and then brought it to the teacher, and everyone was kind of giggling and laughing.
You brought it to the teacher?
I mean, they brought it to the teacher like, "Oh, look, da, 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 like we found this," I mean, I don't remember, and I don't know if it was used or not. It's a different story, but
oh my God. Okay.
I would need to ask my classmate that if he remembers. But basically, I remember like the kids laughing and giggling, like being even a bit shy about it, and I had no idea what a condom was. So I had no idea why everyone found it so funny. And then I went home, of course, and I told my parents, like, I was just confused, like, my classmates were laughing about this, and I have no idea, like, what this is. And I remember my parents being like, okay, we need to talk to you about something. So actually, in some way, I feel that, I feel like my parents had or at least appeared to have a very healthy relationship with talking about sex. Because I know from so many of my friends that the parents would never, ever even mention the topic. And in my house, my parents in that moment, for example, they brought in a box of condoms and they showed me and they explained to me, like, what it's for. And, when mommy and daddy make love, like, this is, what you use to protect from like diseases. I mean, in that time, I don't know how much I could absorb from all that, but they were very much open to talk about it. And even nudity in my house was quite common. Like I would see my parents naked, and like I remember having baths with my mom until I was like 7, 8. So basically, this topic of nudity was never an issue at home. However, no one really taught me as I was growing up and as I was having my first sexual experiences what actually potential for trauma there can be in those spaces, even as little as it can be, because it's not just about the physical, it's about like what someone tells you during sex. And it's such a vulnerable space. It's the most vulnerable space, I think, that we can share with someone. So in that sense, I wish that someone had told me all the things that happen there, and all the trauma that we can hold in our body due to these experiences, even as innocent, as playful, as fun as they sound when we are experiencing it, maybe being teenagers or young adults, how much of an impact it can have in our lives. And
I do feel that my stomach is turning inside out a little bit. Also because I've heard quite a lot of stories recently from female friends, their own trauma in sex, and so as you're speaking, I'm getting this really physical feeling of how it was for them, and it just not very comfortable.
And happens way more often than anyone's aware of or wants to acknowledge.
Yeah, for some people it's normal. Yeah. Like for some women, this has been a norm until they maybe get a partner that's doing it a bit different. Like, oh, I've never had this before. I didn't know it could feel like this.
It's still such a taboo subject.
Yeah. We've got tons of questions that have come in that we haven't actually touched, which would be nice to bring on. Some of them came early on, and one that was really nice was from Mariam, and we brought this up a few times during the show already. I'm not so comfortable with using the word trust because it implies holding people responsible for our subjective expectations. And I heard you say, I believe on 2 occasions on the show, I couldn't trust myself yet, or things in that direction. And
or the masculine in me.
Or the masculine in me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because when I've looked at trust in my life and how it's evolved, I always feel like if I can trust myself, everything is fine. And if I can't trust myself, then all of a sudden things can go a little bit wonky. And so I'm wondering, to what degree, how can you identify with that a bit more, rather than saying, I don't trust men, say, I don't trust until I learn to trust myself, period.
Yeah. I guess until I learned that I needed to trust my own body, my own intuition, my own feelings. Until I didn't learn that, I could not fully trust someone else. And I'm going back to the context of sex. I could not trust someone else with my body. And actually, looking back at the title and the "I Cannot Trust Men," I feel that for me, the deeper meaning behind that is like, I don't feel safe with men. And one of the very main thing for the main longing of any woman or any person in their feminine essence is to feel safe. And this goes beyond the context of sex, actually.
I think that's the biggest compliment a woman can give a man.
That she feels safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed it's really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing a sharing here in the community where I'm living, and we do this open sharing with feedback. It's called cellular transformation. I'm not sure if you guys heard of this before, which basically means that you share and you receive feedback. And actually, a person in the circle was receiving feedback that was coming from mainly the women. But it was really an energetic thing. Like even the men were noticing it as well. That this what we were calling out on this man is what we were calling out on his integrity, because apparently he was giving off, or the feeling that the women were getting is that he was giving off an energy of like wanting something from the women. And this person was actually, we could consider this person an elder. And the men were calling him out on, you are an elder to us, you are a role model for us, we wanna trust you, and we don't see you in your integrity. And the women were calling him out on, we don't feel safe around you. And when I mentioned that I could feel the pain that he must feel or I can feel the pain of the masculine when they're being told that people don't feel safe around them. This person like burst into tears. And actually, that experience for me was super healing, because I got to see also his side of the pain and the hurt that he feels of not making other people feel safe around him, and that somehow he's danger or so I always like to see the two sides and actually feel into the pain of the masculine. That's also been part of my healing.
Yeah. We've got some comments that I'd like to carry on from Ralph Lewis, who's been very active today. And he says, I might have missed this because I came in late, but I'd like to ask Nathalie how she made the shift out of the identification with the pattern from her childhood to where she is now. So how did you make that shift?
I guess it means the shift of me not trusting myself, my experience, right?
I would say where you needed to come today to make peace with your relationship with yourself, and then of course then with men.
I guess to the shift came from, and this is again an ongoing process, which I practice every day, every time, in every interaction. But I think the shift came from accepting and meeting myself in every single thing that I experience, in every single thing that I feel, and not judging it. And next step, sharing it. Like, this is what I feel, and this is where I'm at. And again, trusting my experience first, and then sharing it with another. And not doubting my experience because of the other person's response to it. So still being true and anchored in that. And yeah, I mean, it can be very challenging.
How would it feel right now if I said to you, I think you're wrong?
I notice already I notice like this desire to like prove you wrong.
Yeah.
I notice it in my body as well, like this.
Yeah.
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 So how does Nathalie engage? Are you in a relationship right now, Nathalie?
I am getting to know someone, yes.
So
I love that face.
If he's watching,
He probably will.
So what does the Nathalie, the present Nathalie, based on her journey so far, how do you engage this current partner, like even in lovemaking and intimacy? Like,
How is it different?
How is it different? Thanks, Andy.
Beautiful. I state my boundaries from the start, and my needs in intimacy. Yeah, and yeah.
Can you share a little? Can you speak to that?
I guess I share where I'm willing to go, especially sexually, and also to, well, actually going back to what I was sharing before, like one of my main boundaries is that I'm not going to engage in intimacy if I don't feel connection, if I don't feel a genuine presence. Because like you, Bambos, I also, when I have sex, I make love. And I think it's always been the case like this for me. And at some point in my life, I confused it with me being hypersexual or that. But honestly, deep down, my longing has always been to bring love and the emotional element to sex. I think that's probably my main boundary as a woman and as in my own experience. Because I want to, if I'm engaging in intimacy with this person, I want to feel open and I want to be able to let go and surrender. And if I feel unsafe, I won't be able to do that. And it doesn't mean that it all depends on the other person.
Yeah.
I mean, I create the safety in my own body by doing my work as well.
Yeah.
Of course. But it's such a vulnerable thing for a woman to completely let go. Yeah. And noticing actually the most important thing like that happens now that didn't happen then is like, as a woman, when I'm fully able to let go and surrender, that's the only way I can actually even reach orgasm. And I hear from so many women that struggle with this, and of course there can be something physical happening as well, but yeah, on an energetic level, if the woman is not feeling presence and it doesn't feel safe to surrender, like, yeah, it's probably quite difficult anyway to reach that level of ecstasy.
Can I follow up with something? So I'm hearing that you create conditions where you can experience the maximum pleasure by being open and trusting. Now, even in that space, though, the, uh, in my imagination, there have got to, or at least also in my experience, there've got to be moments where you feel all this, and he touched you in a way that triggered a response where a less conscious man has touched you, and all of a sudden you shut down. Have you had that experience? And if yes, how did you deal with it?
Yes, it did happen actually once recently, and indeed I shut down, and indeed I was taken back to the past and then to a moment, and I was just not there again anymore. And in that moment, I stopped and I say, like, stop, like, this is okay. This was too much too soon, like, and I need more time, and I need more. In that moment, I felt like I was not trusting, basically. But the fact that I could stop in that moment and express it and share it and not feel like I'm breaking the moment, or all this conditioning that I've had also for a while of not sharing a boundary in that moment, or saying stop, or the fact that I could do that was already healing in itself. And the fact that he just held space for that, and he didn't say, oh no, you're wrong, or oh no, what are you saying, or he just held space, and then we went back into cuddling, and then it was just yeah, it was very beautiful. He didn't try to change my experience.
He's hired.
Yeah. I think that's one of the charges I've felt sometimes in my life, and I'll sometimes still see it come up, is if I say, oh, I'm feeling this way, like not towards another person, but inside myself, a feeling. And then somebody starts to tell me, no, you're not feeling that way. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like there's a degree of like,
Andy, I'm sensing that you're not feeling that way.
Arrogance, or that other person to tell you how you're feeling, right? And sadly, it's what happens.
And communication could also be part of our childhood education.
Or non. I have an interesting comment that comes in from a secret person who's using a Wonderful Chaos
Your
account.
wife?
My wife. And she happens to write down, Andy, I'd like to be having more sex with you, and I'd like to see you initiating sex because it's the duty of a man. That's what she's written there, whether she realizes it or not. What she's actually written is, I come from a culture where initiating sex is a duty of a man. Yeah.
And she wants to feel that you've got this.
In Indonesia, it's really, in that culture, it's really part of the man's duty to, and we've discussed that a few times on in our relationship. Mariam appreciappreciates that humor.
Me too. I love you, Rani.
I wonder where that comes from, though, because I've never heard of this before, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, because I lived in Asia often, and at least in those countries, it was interesting that there was the onus. It was the woman was there to serve the man. I was living in the countryside, very small villages. I was the only white person in that village, sort of thing. And in a way, it was like no woman was going to come up to me and initiate. So it was my role as the man to take that step, right?
Hey, Whitey.
We even had one guest on once who flabbergasted me, because I was like, is that it was a woman, Serene. She actually died a week after doing the show because she was sick, and she
the nun that was a dominatrix.
Yeah, the nun that was a dominatrix. And she said, and she was really strong about it. She said that she felt that Asia was creating this rape culture because the women were, and as she said, they play no, 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 and the men are being taught that they have to push over that no. So there was no way that they were learning how to make sex part of their relationship. So as she explained in her words, that it was creating this, what one might say unhealthy, but then we're judging the culture, but a different way of sexually relating to one another. Yeah. I was pretty surprised when she shared that back to me, but I could identify with it. I couldn't deny that there was some truth in it when I look back to my own experience. Yeah. So yeah, was that an answer to your question? Because I think that you brought it up. So was that?
Yeah, definitely. I hearing you say this, I just felt a tension in my body, and like I was just like cringing on this. And actually, now that you explain it, it makes sense, because in Argentina, it's maybe a bit the same. I mean, I guess, yeah, it does apply to sex directly, but also in terms of flirting. Like, it's the man who asks you out, it's the man who approaches you in the bar, it's the man who talks to you. And there is also this thing about a woman saying no, but actually maybe she means yes. And I blame both men and women for this, because it is true to some extent that women back home do that. To be like, oh, I just want to play difficult, so I say no, but in fact I mean yes. And I'm pretty sure that gets translated into sex as well. And then the man thinks that she's saying no, but actually she means yes. So culturally, I've experienced that as well.
It's the same in my culture too, and I think in most Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, Asian.
Yeah, we also have a lot of comments coming in around this whole discussion. Ralph Lewis has come back in. Well, it's unhealthy because it powers over and is violent to others. Yeah, that's very clear. Iris Offer shares, of course, it's well-known paradigm that men initiate sex. Also, what you said, Natalie, about pleasing men by giving into sex when they do not feel 100% yes is a well-known phenomena for women are experiencing, and thanks to cultural rules. And we have Mariam, who's also says also similar in the Middle East. Yeah.
Oh,
that's hysterical. So now I have makeup sex ahead of me. Because we've given Bolalong rights to use our account because he's often supporting us. And he says it's not Ronnie who wants more, that men are initiating the sex. It's Bolalong who wants that. So we take back what I said. Ronnie, if you're listening, I'm sorry, baby. I love you.
And he will initiate tonight, and you can say no or yes to it.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. I love that.
Hilarious.
I won't make that mistake, Bola. If you want to trick me in the future, Bolalong, go ahead and throw a curveball in there for me.
I like that he's using the two accounts, though. So he's logged off and then he's logging on the other one. And then
exactly. He logs in a few accounts. We never know where he is.
He goes onto YouTube. Because he loves and supports us, he goes onto YouTube and he watches on Facebook. So he's kind of like creating a lot of
lot of activity for us. And Mariam also recognizes we trust Bolalong, so Bolalong has rights over everything. I mean, in a lot of ways, the trust, and it might be nice to kind of connect this into, is the you've also participated in the group on Facebook with the hashtag and it's fucking great. And Bolalong, that was actually his idea. Funnily enough, on the show he came on, he said, Andy, why don't we make a hashtag out of one of your books, and then out of the last book, and then he said, and it's fucking great. And I thought, this is the dumbest idea of all time, because who's going to want to hashtag anything and it's fucking great and post it? And then actually, the more I thought about it, it seemed like a really beautiful next step. And I'm wondering, in your healing process of, you mentioned earlier, just embracing your current state, how has that supported you in that regard?
The group, you mean, or the It's Fucking Great?
Either or.
I mean, it's been one of the main things, actually. Because it's just the simplest way to acknowledge my experience and share it with others and have others see it. And not surprisingly, have others resonate with it and send love.
Yeah, I think, isn't that one of the weirdest? When you post something, I'll feel a connection in myself immediately, because even if it's a female experience, there's always part of that that's also in my experience. It's not separate from it. So it's almost like a meditation for me. And when the more intimate somebody is, the more I feel like, bang, I'm back centered again in a way that I didn't even realize I was out of center. So, yeah. It's so thank you for sharing there. I think it's as you spoke and you were telling me how you were stating things and owning your experience, I felt very connected to that group as you were speaking. Yeah. We also have Dawn Robertson on, and Dawn was with us on Friday. She was doing the show I Hate Men's Groups, and I didn't realize I could get shit for doing a show, Dawn, but because of our show, I was told that I was trolling men's groups, which I didn't feel like I was trolling men's groups, but that I was provoking men's groups when actually I was celebrating Dawn. So it was interesting to have that experience last week, a bit of a surprise.
I'll be curious to watch that one.
Yeah, it was a nice, Dawn is a sweet woman who only wants love and affection in the world, and she provokes everyone to get there. Wow. Are there things we haven't gone into with you, things that you say were important for your journey, but we haven't asked you questions about?
The question I was thinking, or something that I would love to share, is about what makes me as a woman, what makes me trust a man. We talked about what makes me mistrust them, but what actually makes me trust them.
Can you answer that question? Do we need to ask it, or can you just answer it?
And I would love to ask that question to you after as well.
Yeah.
In your own connections with men. What makes me trust a man is when I can feel that he knows what he wants and he shares it. And he's clear in his speech, but also in that he stays true to his words by his actions.
Yeah.
With that, I see also integrity. So when I feel that there's integrity, and when I feel like he's acting from his values and not from expectations or conditioning or shadows from other men, when I can feel him, when I feel his softness and his vulnerability. Yeah, when I feel like he can take his mask off in our connection. And so in a way, I guess it's when he has an integrated feminine as well. And I can feel when I can feel his heart. Yeah, when he's able to be present with me. When he doesn't try to get me somewhere or get us somewhere. Where he can really be with what is there and not try to fix or and when he does not feel shame for his sexual energy or attraction for me, but that he owns it. Like he embraces it and he owns it, and he's not being awkward or kind of weird about it. So he can, when I have a man come to me and say, I feel attraction to you, and that's all I'm gonna say, and you don't have to do anything about it. That he's just like owning it, basically, and that where I feel I have choice, and yeah, I actually trust a man who does that. Mm. Mm. What about you guys?
I don't distinguish between male or female. So I just, it kind of confuses me if I think I have to, like, there'll be things I take more into account if it's a female so that there's no confusion on sexuality stuff. But sometimes I do that with a male if there might be confusion on sexuality. So that also isn't altogether one way or the other. But the thing that I normally would say is I'm trying to give it words that aren't too abstract. If I see your eyes, and when you speak and I hear that you're speaking from a place which is more grounded, then I'll have more trust. If through our interactions, like you said, there's a consistency of your words with your actions, then I'll have more trust. If I see you go through adversity, hopefully really, really bad adversity, and I see that you stay consistent to what you've said and then the actions, then that'll increase the trust even more. So I would say I'm always at a trust of an individual, maybe more so than most people around me, because I'd also see if someone is incapable, let's say, of doing all the things I just mentioned, it wouldn't necessarily be because they're not to be trusted. I would say it would be because they're not at peace with something that's going on inside of themselves. So I don't take trust as a thing. It's more an observation of what feels, and I'd use the word feel because I'm still making assumptions. It would be arrogant to think I hold some truth to this, that there's something there that doesn't feel quite round. And therefore, I don't really know what I can expect. And I also know if the conditions change, that then I really don't know what I can expect because I already don't know what I can expect now. So if the conditions change, there's a whole nother world I wouldn't necessarily be able to anticipate. So that's how I view trust. And that's why I say I look less at trust as someone, do I trust an individual? And I look at more as, do I trust myself to see every individual in whatever state they're in? And if I don't trust that, then I feel like there's something that I'm not centered around. Because in some ways, if you go back to that famous quote, like, if you look out at the world, then you'll see everything in yourself. To some degree, I'm only looking at a reflection of me in everyone I look at. So where am I not seeing myself reflected in them, or vice versa? Yeah. A very long answer, but that's an honest.
If we cut it,
yeah,
and put some nice music,
and a white turban. Are you trying to tell me it sounded like that?
And then some clouds.
but we joke. But can you also connect to that way of seeing the world, or does it sound so far out that it's like, no, that's way too out there?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because I love what you said about also meeting people where they're at. I think that's what I took from where you're from your share. And with everything I shared, I noticed like how I started judging myself. Like, okay, yes, I want to feel these things to trust someone, but at the same time, when that person, let's say, cannot be present with me in that moment, or is not able to be vulnerable, or they feel closed off, the fact that they share that and they say, I would like to be present with you, but I cannot right now, that actually enhances the trust even more.
Sure.
So the vulnerability actually enhances the trust even more than just wanting to show off something just to please me. Or so that's the feeling I got from also from your share, that you were tapping on that.
Yeah. I'm not going to read you the comment from Bolalong, but you can comment to it after the show if you'd like. We're not going to put everything you have on your brain, Bolalong, especially when we're over an hour and you're opening up a Pandora's box. But we didn't get to you, Bambas, on this question.
up until recently, I've been reacting to people. So I would feel, because I'm very sensitive, and then I would take my feelings seriously, but I wouldn't hold it lightly. So there will be a very strong, conclusive reaction towards the person, almost judgmental. And through this wonderful chaos and getting to interact with a lot of people, there is more a groundedness in the feeling and an embrace. So always used to not feel comfortable. I used to judge people that were more here instead of saying I'm not comfortable with that, and now there's more a love for that. And it's funny, someone messaged me today that I don't know how they got my number, but they wanted to hang out, and it didn't excite me. So I sat with it for a bit, like, what is it in them that doesn't excite me? And it had to do with behaviors that I saw, and then it just felt that there wasn't going to be the depth that I love when I am interacting with people, and if that's not there, and the vulnerability, of course. So that's where my no is, but it has nothing to do with trust. It just has to do with how I choose and who I want to spend my time with.
Does that mean that you don't hang out with people you don't trust?
Yeah,
I do. And not in the most negative way of saying trust, because trust would imply judgment towards people whose behavior does not sync up with what they're saying. I would say if that's the definition, then probably most of the people in my life are in that category.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would say I don't hang out with people just for the sake of filling up the space. There's a certain quality that I enjoy in my life, and I also like my solitude. Yeah. Andy's walking a lot, so he kind of, I see him nowadays just inviting a lot of energy into his life. And it's different from what I know you. In the past, you wouldn't do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I might take a walk with people now because I'm in an energetic state, and I'm not sitting behind a computer on a phone, and there's an energy that's beyond just the two people talking. It's like a lot of fresh air and a lot of sweating going on. Yeah. Bolalong really is pushing this point. He doesn't want to let it go, but I'm going to leave that for another show, Bolalong.
Maybe he wants to talk about it.
Maybe he does. I wouldn't mind having a whole show on the topics he's posting into the tail end of our time together.
Has he been on the show?
Yeah, we've had Bolalong on. Are you kidding me? Bolalong is not only has he been, as far as I'm concerned, he's on every show, because I don't even know if I would do this show if Bolalong wasn't here.
What show has he not been in?
Emotionally, he's sort of the center. He's like, if he's gone, Bambos and I are looking at one another. Do we have to call the fire department?
Bolalong, are you there?
I just want to tell him that his consistency makes me trust him.
Yeah, he is very consistent. Yeah, he's a loving energy to be with. And even if he puts on a subject, which we'll mention it now, because he says, Nathalie, what's your perspective of aggressive role play during sex, dirty talk, spanking, etc.? Exactly. That face. Yeah. And I thought that, like, okay, after we had a 1 hour 10 show, that's a lot. That's a late question, but he follows that up with, I asked that question because men tend to be aggressive, and I noticed a high number of women tending to like that in men. Yeah. So that was a
it's a conscious aggression. Well, I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
It's presence. It's not like I'm getting lost in a dark experience where I can hurt the woman. It's a very grounded and very, very loving, like almost like penetrating bullshit, but with love.
We're leaving that for another show. Yes,
we don't have to. And Mariam says, don't give
Just
Coraline
don't give him your Facebook access. Yeah.
Natalie, it's been great having you.
Yes, it
Thanks
was really
for
great
being
to have
with
you.
these two old geezers.
Yeah, thank you for giving us our name. Imagine that 218 episodes later. We haven't seen you in 218 episodes. Can you believe that?
Well, I have. We had a coffee before she left.
Oh. And how are you feeling given that you did the first show and then this show? Would you say that we've improved or we've declined in our ability to do this thing?
I still feel you the same.
Good.
Well, you're just as authentic as you were.
Sweet. Andy wants to hear that you think that we're more professional.
I would like to hear the opposite. My preference would have been there to say, I liked it much better when you didn't know who was coming on the show. You had no show titles. It was as chaotic as could be, you know?
And we had a great background.
We had a great one.
And a phone.
Yes. Thank you. We send you a lot of love. Yeah.
Adios, Nathalie.
And we'll see you next time then. Oh, yeah. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I'm taking deep breaths. A lot of love. Bye. That was a really beautiful show. A lot of things came up.
For me too.
What I've enjoyed on some of the shows lately is there's been a lot more air space, and then they sort of go in directions which I, have no, not that I knew before, but they feel like they go in random directions that I didn't expect. Even more so than some of the earlier shows. It's really, really beautiful.
I in the beginning I thought, oh shit, this is getting very heavy, and then I realized it started to open up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And not that we would cover the heaviness with jokes.
Yeah, I noticed that because sometimes we'll hold stuff lightly. I'll play, and I realized that I didn't want to play today. Thought let's let it be, unfold the way it unfolds, and and it's always nice just to allow it to be different each time. So I really love that. Tomorrow, it's our last time. We're not going to be here Thursday or Friday. Bowl along. We apologize to you in advance. I don't know what you're going to do with that extra hour in your day. We got a holiday, and Ronnie and I are taking advantage of that holiday, and we're going to spend an extra day together. That's why we have Friday off as well.
And next week I'll be broadcasting from my country.
Yes.
Unless they send me back.
Yeah, doing it remotely. We have Walter Cooper on, and as I said earlier, he's over 90 years old. He's had an incredible life. He's interacted with incredible individuals in the world. He knew Martin Luther King. He had a lot of contact with Malcolm X. He was friends with Robert F. Kennedy.
He lived through all those times, and he's still alive.
Yes, he did. And he was a scientist, a philanthropist. He's done so much. And I am dear friends with his son. And I said, hey, can we get your dad on the show? And then he said, yeah, I'll figure out a way to get him on. So that's how we got this guy on.
Nice.
Yeah. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow on our last show of the week. And we'll see you next time on
A Wonderful
Chaos.